The strobe of red and blue lights washed across my driveway as two squad cars came to a halt in front of my home. From the window, I spotted my daughter, Emily, just 16, frozen on the porch with her overnight bag clenched tightly in her trembling hands. Two officers were already closing in on her, their palms hovering near their holsters. And there, planted smugly at the edge of my property, stood Patricia Hawthorne, HOA president of Maple Ridge Estates, arms crossed and grin triumphant. She thought she had won some petty victory. She had no idea she had just made the biggest mistake of her power-drunk career. But let me back up. My name is David Garrison. I've served as a circuit court judge in Jefferson County for 12 years. After my divorce 3 years ago, Emily began splitting her time between my house here in Maple Ridge and her mother's place across town. It was a simple arrangement that worked for everyone except Patricia Hawthorne. Patricia had ruled over the HOA for 5 years, and in that time she turned the neighborhood association into her own personal fiefdom. She memorized every bylaw and enforced them with obsessive zeal. Garbage cans visible after 6 p.m., that was a $50 fine. Grass half an inch too long, another citation. She even fined my neighbor $200 for keeping Christmas decorations up past January 2nd. But her favorite hobby, her true calling, was policing who entered and left the neighborhood. She'd appointed herself the gatekeeper, despite having no real authority. I'd watched her interrogate delivery drivers, chase down contractors, and tail cars she didn't recognize like some deranged suburban vigilante. Most of us tolerated her antics, not wanting the drama. That end of the day, she targeted my daughter. Emily had just arrived for her weekend visit. Her mother dropped her at the gate, as usual, and Emily walked the 2 blocks to my house, a routine she'd done dozens of times. I was in my home office reviewing case files when I heard the commotion. At first, I assumed it was neighborhood kids. Then I heard the sharp static of police radios. By the time I opened the front door, Emily was cornered by 2 officers, tears streaming down her face. She tried to explain she lived here, that she was my daughter, but Patricia kept cutting her off, shrieking accusations. I saw her sneaking around the back. Patricia was saying, gesturing wildly. She was casing the house. I've never seen her before. Obviously some troubled teen planning to break in. The officers, to their credit, looked skeptical. The taller one, Officer Chun, was trying to calm things. Ma'am, she says she lives here. She has a key. Of course she has a key, Patricia snapped. She probably stole it. I prevented a burglary. You should be thanking me. That was enough. I stepped outside. Is there a problem here, officers? Patricia lit up like she'd been waiting for me. Judge Garrison, thank goodness. I caught this girl trying to break into your home. I called 911 immediately. I walked down the steps, pulled out my wallet, and handed my credentials to Officer Chin. That won't be necessary. This is my daughter, Emily. She's here for her court-ordered visitation weekend. The atmosphere shifted instantly. Chen's eyes flicked wide as he read my ID, and his partner, Officer Mitchell, straightened at attention. Both recognized my name. My apologies, Judge Garrison, Chen said formally. We received a call about a burglary in progress. Patricia's smugness faltered. Wait, that can't be. I've never seen her before. She can't possibly. Ms. Hawthorne, I said, letting my courtroom tone cut through the air. This is my daughter, Emily. She has been visiting me every other weekend for 3 years. If you haven't noticed, that says more about your lack of observation than anything else. Patricia flushed red. Well, how was I supposed to know? She was sneaking around the back. You mean the side path? The one she uses because I keep the front gate locked. Emily, voice trembling, finally spoke up. I tried to tell her, Dad. I said I was your daughter, but she wouldn't listen. She kept screaming at me to get off the property, and then she called the police. Officer Mitchell pulled out his notepad. Ms. Hawthorne, did this young lady identify herself before you dialed 911? Patricia's mouth worked uselessly. She might have said something, but anyone could claim that. I was just being cautious. Actually, Chen interjected, you can be too cautious. Filing a false police report is a crime, Ms. Hawthorne. You called 911 about a burglary in progress, when in reality, you were watching a teenager enter her father's home. Patricia sputtered. It wasn't false. I genuinely believed. You genuinely believed harassment counted as community safety? I cut her off, my voice like a gavel. Tell me, Ms. Hawthorne, how many other children of residents have you called the police on? How many legitimate guests have you terrorized? The officers exchanged a knowing glance. Clearly, this wasn't the first time Patricia had pulled something like this. Officer Mitchell flipped open his notepad, his expression deliberate. Actually, Judge Garrison, he said, we've responded to several calls from Ms. Hawthorne over the past year. Most turned out to be false alarms. Patricia bristled, though the confidence was draining from her stance. I'm trying to keep this neighborhood safe, she insisted. No, I corrected, my voice cold. You're trying to control this neighborhood. There's a difference. And today, you cross a line. You didn't just harass a visitor. You traumatized a minor. My daughter. Officer Chin stepped forward. Ms. Hawthorne, I'm issuing you a formal warning for misuse of emergency services. This incident will be documented. If a pattern of false reports continues, you could face criminal charges. Patricia's face, once flushed red with triumph, drained pale. You can't do that. I'm the HOA president. I have a responsibility. Your responsibility, I cut in, sharpen the gavel strike, is limited to maintaining the common areas and enforcing legitimate bylaws. Nowhere in those bylaws does it grant you the authority to impersonate law enforcement. And I should know, I reviewed every word before buying this home. I turned to the officers. Gentlemen, I'll be filing a formal complaint with your department and with the HOA board. This will be addressed. That's your right, your honor, Chin replied, his tone formal. Then to Patricia. Ma'am, I strongly suggest you learn what constitutes an actual emergency. Wasting police resources is no small matter. As the officers returned to their cruisers, Patricia stood frozen, her power suddenly hollow. A small crowd of neighbors had gathered, watching the spectacle unfold. Some nodded quietly in my direction as they dispersed. I wasn't the only one who had grown tired of her tyranny. Patricia finally found her voice brittle and desperate. This isn't over. I'll be addressing this at the next board meeting. Your daughter may be allowed to visit, but there are procedures, guest registrations, notifications. Actually, I said, pulling out my phone, let's discuss it now. I scrolled through my contacts. I believe I have board member Jennifer Rodriguez on speed dial. She's an attorney. I'm sure she'll be very interested in hearing how the HOA president called the police on a resident's child. Patricia's eyes widened. That's not necessary. We can handle this internally. Oh, it's necessary, I said evenly. You've mistaken your position for absolute power. But every organization has checks and balances, even an HOA. The following weeks were revealing. I filed my complaints as promised, with the police and with the board. Word spread quickly through Maple Ridge. The iron-fisted HOA president had called the cops on Judge Garrison's daughter. Patricia, once so proud of her supposed influence, now found herself isolated. An emergency board meeting was called 2 weeks later. The community clubhouse overflowed with residents. One by one, they stepped forward with stories. Mr. Patterson, elderly and soft-spoken, described being fined because his grandson's bike sat in his driveway for 10 minutes. The Andersons recounted how Patricia had called the police during their family reunion, claiming it was an unauthorized gathering. Even quiet Mrs. Foster, who rarely spoke above a whisper, shared how she'd been harassed over her choice of mailbox flowers. Patricia sat at the head table, her commanding aura gone. When the vote of no confidence came, it was unanimous. Even her former allies abandoned her. But the true reckoning came from the county prosecutor's office. After reviewing her pattern of false reports, Patricia was charged with misuse of emergency services. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. The woman who loved calling the police now had to answer to them. On the morning of her arraignment, I passed her in the courthouse hallway. She looked diminished without her armor of self-righteousness, her lawyer whispering urgently at her side. 50 hours of community service. I overheard him say, A $5,000 fine, and you'll be barred from holding any HOA leadership role for 5 years. Her face crumpled. $5,000. 5 years of exile from her kingdom. Our eyes met briefly. I could have said something sharp, something to twist a knife, but I didn't need to. The law had spoken. Justice had done its work. Patricia pleaded no contest, her voice a faint shadow of its usual shrillness. When the judge announced the sentence, the fine, the service, the ban, her shoulders sagged in surrender. $5,000. The number seemed to echo in the chamber as Patricia stood there, realizing at last that her reign of petty terror had come with a very real price.